Welcome everyone. It is 2:30, we have a quorum, and so we will begin the management committee meeting today, February 11th. Thank you all for being here. Starting off the meeting, we won't be reading our Dakota Land, Water, and People acknowledgement, but I would like to refer to it. It is at the top of our agenda, part of that acknowledgement with the Native community, and just referencing that. We also have our agenda. Are there any changes, additions, or anything like that? All right, then we don't need a motion to approve it, so without objection, we'll move forward as approved. We have our draft minutes from the January 28th special management committee meeting, and everybody's had a chance to review those and look at those. Are there any changes, additions, corrections? All right, seeing none, then I would take a motion to approve those draft minutes from 2028.
So moved.
Moved by Jenkins. Second by Cedarburg. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no, and that passes unanimously. Now we'll move on to the information portion of our agenda, and we'll be taking up the quarterly procurement and MCUB goals review, and we've got Jody Jacoby, our Chief Procurement Officer, Ashante Payne, who's our Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity Assistant Director, to give us that presentation today. So welcome to both of you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Love the sweater, Jody. And you've got a nice shirt going on there too. Look at everybody spiffing up in the management committee meetings twice a day. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Jody Jacoby. I'm the Chief Procurement Officer, and I'm here with
Ashanti Payne, Director, Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity.
And we're here today to present the 2025 procurement summary and the Metropolitan Council Underutilized Business Report. As I'm sure you've noticed, I probably sound better with Thanks, Greg. Right. As I'm sure you've noticed, the report looks a little different than you've seen before. And the intent really is to stretch beyond just providing you transactional data to have a transformational report out. Accountability and spend data metrics are important to all of us, and we strive to share this data in a meaningful way, along with sharing some procurement trends and some stories to demonstrate the collective work along with the business units that directly impacts the region that we all serve. Future presentations for 2026 are in the works, and we continue to be interested in adapting the report to match some of the areas which you as council members, and I've met with a few of you to share this information, along with our business units are really interested in, so we can continue to evolve our procurement methods and have those contract outcomes really align with the work that we care so much about. So this report showcases the efforts to prepare solicitations for projects and contracts of all sizes, including securing contracts at a fair price to meet the business needs, and again, to deliver the essential services for the region. It's done in a manner to foster equity, ensure compliance, and reflect the council's core values. This information report is required by the council's expenditure policy, FM 14.2, authorizing the regional administrator to approve procurement awards up to $2 million for goods and services and up to $10 million for construction projects, provided that the costs align within the capital budget and they fall within 10% of the engineer's estimate. Individual awards undergo a rigorous internal review along with multiple committees, many of which come through here with business items at a value of $2 million or greater, ensuring both compliance and stewardship. So I'm going to begin by reviewing some of our data by each quarter and really looking at 2025 as a snapshot. And I'll scroll through the slides that you have in front of you and talk through some of the significant items on here. So this trend, or this really look at the year in review of the procurement summary for 2025 is pretty similar to what we see in the percentages over other years before this, aligning with Pareto's principles, reminding us that a small number of large procurements really drive the majority of our outcomes. This not only underscores, but it emphasizes the need for strong governance and internal controls. Also, a lot of opportunity for our smaller vendors being able to secure contracts with the Met Council. This category includes engagements for under $175,000, totaling $100 million across 42,000 transactions. The pie chart at the bottom left, small procurements by number of transactions, again illustrates 96% of those 42,000 procurements have a value less than 10,000. And then on the right, it shows small procurements by value where 59% had a value greater than $10,000. All right, next slide. Quarterly demand, you can see quarter by quarter is pretty steady. This is a lot of the work of keeping the lights on, kind of the core services. We have really robust business units with transit and environmental services with very deep inventory. And so this is a lot of the work represented for that, averaging about 10,500 transactions and $25 million a quarter. This consistency not only helps us maintain a staffing workload, but our procurement requisition to fulfillment is pretty consistent as well, averaging about 3 days from a requisition entry to PO approval. We saw a increase in one of the quarters, but it was pretty consistent from 24% all the way to 25.5%. All right, so this slide represents contracts greater than $175,000, again for 2025, and that $175,000 value is significant. In state statute, that's referred to as a public notice. So if we have a project that's anticipated of a value at or close to $175,000, then we advertise on the council's doing business webpage, and we have a more formal solicitation process, which can take the form of a request for quote or an invitation for bid or a construction project. And so you can see again on this, it's this average spend was pretty consistent, but the value, the grand total for the year was $975 million. Interesting statistics, looking at most of them in that range with the number of procurements, most of them are about $175,000 to $500,000 in range. And then that pie chart on the bottom right-hand side, again referencing that 91% of those have a value of greater than $2 million. That again is significant as well. As you're aware, we increased the signature authority, the delegated signature authority policy, where if a contract is for a good or services over $2 million, those are coming forward before you as an individual business item. All right, the next slide really looks at some of the contract types we're using, represented in, if you look at the bottom graph or the bottom chart, the total value goes back to the value that we represented before of $975 million. But the individual value by solicitation type you can see. Sole sources about 1.7%. Cooperative procurement ventures, about almost 208 million. And that's one of the tools that we utilize when we're looking at what's the best value for the council? What's the timing? And we know with national industry indices that we save around $18,000 of administrative fees when we use a cooperative. Again, it has to be an exact match to the good or the services that we're looking for, but we continue to leverage a lot of buying power and efficiency using some of the national cooperatives. 44, invitation for bids. 51, requests for proposals representing the greatest value. And then the last category of other represents solicitation types such as construction cooperative agreements, intergovernmental agreements, and joint powers agreements.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, just on that side, Judy, thanks, and sorry to interrupt your floor, but the, so just a question about the level of control or influence we have within a cooperative purchasing venture to help us meet our goals here.
Madam Chair, Council Member, there are different cooperatives that, if they're in Minnesota, they may also qualify for our MCUB program.
Okay.
There are different cooperatives that we utilize around the country, like the Washington Department, Washington Enterprise Services, that we buy a lot of our fleet on. Those are federally compliant projects that their goals are certified directly to the Federal Transit Administration as a transit vehicle manufacturer. So the Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity isn't setting goals on those. They're maintained through the Federal Transit Administration. We do have other cooperatives that we use with the state of Texas that have some, they call them hubs, historically underutilized businesses. But that is a good point of information that if we are using a cooperative, the Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity is not specifically setting a goal on it.
Thank you, thanks.
Do you have anything else to say on that?
I would just add, excuse me, that when we do utilize MCUBs as part of our cooperative agreement with the state of Minnesota, we like to highlight those so that both the public and council members are aware that this is a success.
Great.
Madam Chair, Council Member, one more point of information. The state statute allows us to use cooperatives, but it also mandates that we look to the state cooperative. They call it the state circular first. And if there is a state of Minnesota cooperative that is available and ready for what we need, then we must use that. We only look at other tools and cooperatives. Cooperatives is one of those tools that we look at. We also look at, is it a better value for us to go out on our own for a bid or a request for a proposal? Again, it's a point of consideration and looking at what's the right tool based on the project and the needs. Great question. And this slide looks at a quarter by quarter summary in each of those different categories, again, greater than that $175,000 threshold. You could see there was a really large influx and increase in the third quarter. Could be a number of business unit reasons. There could be grants expiring, but we saw a really large increase in the third quarter. And slide 7 is really exciting and fun to look at a glance, look back, that small rear view mirror that helps us set our projects, set our strategy, set our procurement plans as we're moving forward with the next year. And to me, this is a sense of pride as well that our MCUB and DBE initiatives continue to deliver equitable outcomes. Each quarter, the contractors exceeded the commitment goals, resulting in an additional 18% participation, and in total, an additional $9.5 million in additional spend with MCUBs and DBEs. This further just demonstrates progress, a lot of progress, a lot of effort toward reducing barriers and advancing the council's equity mission. A couple other notable areas not represented on the reports and in the hard numbers, but a lot of pride with the work and the procurement team, again, in collaboration with many other partners. But in 2026 alone, or 2025, they delivered 10 targeted procurement trainings with over 455 council employees participating. And just alone in the first quarter in 2026, we are working with, again, many partners. We're gonna be launching 3 procurement trainings. Some are strongly encouraged, some will be required, and they will be in the Learn Center as a part of, we're calling it Procurement University. Sounds very glamorous, right? But as a core competency and requirement in understanding what their role is and how they can not only demonstrate awareness of policy and procedure, but understand their signature authority, understand how to utilize the MCUB directory, and their commitment toward advancing their small business spend programs. One other notable improvement was in late 2025, we launched a project, a request for proposal, a very complicated technology project, and we use numeric scoring with our request for proposals. Because of the success of that project, we are going to be implementing it on all RFPs in 2025.
That's great.
And so that's a little bit more understanding and some of the stories and patterns and the good work behind just the transactional data that you see in our report today. And then from here, I'm going to transition to Ashanti.
Thank you, Jody. Madam Chair, committee members, Ashanti Payne. I am here to talk about our MCUB program and outcomes for 2025. And just as kind of a brief refresher, how we measure success in 2 ways. Commitments, I look at that as, we saw Jody's presentation on the projects that were executed in 2025. Commitments tell us how well we did in incorporating small business, certified small businesses, and for the Metropolitan Council, our certified small business program is our Metropolitan Council Underutilized Business Program, or MCUB program. So how did we do in executing those contracts? And then payments. Payments tell us how we did in terms of meeting those commitments. Did we do what we said or we were going to do, and do the outcomes reflect what we committed to when those contracts were executed? So, just as a background, what this includes: projects and contracts that are procured through a competitive bid or request for proposals or potential proposals, and contracts that were executed again during 2025. Tells us how we did. So in this slide, on slide 13, you can see that we have been meeting our goal of 14% the previous 3 years. We did go down in 2025, and I'll talk a little bit about what we saw as some of the reasons why we had a dip for 2025. So some of the data trends, consistent with Jody's data, even our commitments in Q3, we saw our highest spike at 9.8%, and Q4 at 8.5%. Did not do as well in the first 2 quarters in 2025, but better in Q3 and Q4. None of our divisions were able to meet our goal in 2025. Again, these are all different than the previous years where we were able to consistently meet our goal. So why? I think it's 2 things, or 2 main things. One, information we already knew both from the disparity study and our own data that bears this out. We do really well in terms of the administration and procurement processes around our MCUB and small business program goal setting and achievements. We consistently achieve more participation than the actual goal set on projects. And the other thing that we learned, we have some opportunities to improve in terms of our goods and our purchasing of goods and some of the other areas that fall outside of those competitive procurement processes. And we believe that we have a plan in place for 2026 to really make impact and improvements in our areas outside of just our goal setting, where we do really well and we have a strong program. So things like our small business opportunity spend plan, which creates planning around those areas, accountability and shared responsibility for those outcomes, so that it's not all dependent upon procurement and OEEO in terms of achieving success. So our payment data, again, some of the key data points involved in our payment data. This includes purchasing cards, PO payments for construction, PO payments for services, and PO payments for goods. And it represents ongoing payments for existing contracts and general payments to MCUB firms. So these are not just projects that were executed in 2025. This includes payments that were made in 2025. So it could be projects that were executed 3 years ago or projects that were executed yesterday, so to speak. This is something, I think this is, if not our most important measure, one that we definitely pay close attention to, is our direct payments to MCUB firms, because this is where we are have a direct relationship with the MCUBs. We're not reliant upon prime contractors to pay MCUB firms. And although that 6.4% achievement in 2025, and we're currently residing at 7.2% in 2026, those may seem low, but if you look at the trend data, we have more than doubled that percentage in participation rate, and we are trending in the right direction. And again, this is one of the key and important indicators that we look at because of that direct relationship. Just in terms of some of the individual divisions, Metro Transit had the highest dollar value in terms of direct payments, and regional administration had the highest percentage in terms of direct payments to MCUBs. Some of the demographic data that stood out, Caucasian women had the highest amount or dollar value in terms of payments made, followed by Black men in 2025. So P-card data. P-card data has been up and down, and it's one of the areas where, again, we have some direct focus. Jody talked about the training that we will be doing and partnering on, and then also our small business opportunity spend plan data to kind of really focus on this. We had some good engagement in our initial kickoff that we did with the small business opportunity spend plan, good questions, and we created a lot of good discussion internally at the divisions where we think we can make some impact again here in 2026.
Just one question on that. And so putting the information out there, getting people trained up, making sure you've got businesses that are ready to go when we need them, and tighten up getting them those contracts faster and all the things, or the contract. And and again, I know you must be doing this, and maybe you've said this, but then do you circle back on the backside of all of that and ask the why nots? Is like how, was there just no opportunity here, or how do you, or was there a breakdown maybe in some of the training where or a timeliness that just didn't work out because we had to get things going, or, you know, how do you categorize those, I'll call them hurdles, if there is such a thing?
Madam Chair, committee members, yes, what I would say, we previously maybe not had a good plan around how to do that. We do now. So part of their small business opportunity spend plans, one, they have to identify any barriers that they see. And we can identify how we can assist them in overcoming those barriers. And then there's an accountability piece. How are you going to track, measure, and pivot if necessary, if you are experiencing barriers? And we're tracking that, and we are measuring that over the course of the year.
And are you getting support within the divisions then to help do that so that it's not on all of your shoulders? Is there a partnership in that?
Madam Chair, committee members, yes. So each of the divisions were required to identify small business champions to help facilitate that conversation, education, accountability, all of the above, so that there is that partnership. And again, we had like really three main goals with this initial phase. One, to generate good conversation, creativity, innovation within the divisions, bring those questions back to us. Also to identify areas where we're doing well, and where can procurement and OEEO assist in helping us, again, achieve impact. And then thirdly, what were the things that you did not think about that we think you should consider in your plans and measure over the course of the year, and actually 2 years looking forward?
Thank you.
I'll just say, Madam Chair and council members, to really emphasize what Ashanti mentioned with our training, the first training that we had that we launched in the Learn Center, it talked about the policy and procedure updates. And with the last legislative session and in the fall, we spent a significant amount of time really being intentional with our small business tools and some of those contracting opportunities that would make it easier, faster, and be a great opportunity for small businesses to get certified in some of those areas. And that was emphasized again and again in the training. Our next training that we're gonna be launching is Signature Authority. Everyone who is a people leader, really understanding what their signature means, and even how can they use their signature and their influence to empower their staff to not only make sure that they have a well-written scope of work, but they have a robust vendor pool that includes vendors that will help them achieve their small business spend plan. So we're looking at ways to better partner with each other and really understand the goal and the whole versus just procurement and OEO.
Thank you. Yes, Councilmember Morales.
Thank you, Chair. Since we're looking at like removing some of the barriers to try and get more emerging contractors to participate, have we looked into either teaching them how to increase their bonding capacity? Because that's one of the largest hurdles emerging contractors have, is they don't have any idea of what bonding capacity is, how to work to try and increase that. Are we creating relationships in the state or in the area to connect these emerging contractors with so they can help build their bonding capacity?
Madam Chair, council members, excellent question. The answer is yes. There have been two recent bonding workshops that the council participated. We did not lead them, but we were invited. One, MnDOT led, and they did it in and around the Blatnick Bridge project that's going on, but they invited us and any firms that we could help engage and get to that training session. It was virtual. And then also, I participate on behalf of the council in a regional organization that also does and did a bonding session here in our region that we participated in. So yes, you are absolutely correct that that has been identified as a barrier. We do partner with our regional partners and national partners to help our regional and local businesses assess that barrier and navigate it more successfully.
Great question, thank you.
So one of the other key payment data indicators that we look at is secondary payments. These are the payments that we make to primes, but then primes then pay their subcontractors, and specifically MCUB subcontractors. And this data just reveals that the breakdown of that subcontracted work. The highest participation, again, was among Caucasian-owned subcontractors, and then the next highest was among Asian Pacific-owned businesses.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just on this data point, that's finding very helpful, and do we track timeliness of the payments, or is that a piece of data that we have, how long some of the subs wait for the lead contractors to pay them?
Madam Chair, council members, we do track it on a project by project basis. One of the things and one of the changes that was mandated recently, at least on our federal projects, is a lot of times small businesses don't want to rock the boat,
Right.
and they don't want to report it until it's like it's a problem now, so
Right.
they've got to reach out to us. So we wanted to figure out a way to be more proactive in terms of how we address those situations. And mainly, it's really an issue, and probably the primary issue that I hear about is on our very large
Sure.
capital projects, where those payment cycles can get long. But we track them, the payment cycle. We did that for some of our federal projects like the Green Line extension, and reported on it monthly so that everybody, so it was transparent,
Sure.
and we could talk about any issues and barriers.
Okay, appreciate that. I know we brought this up before. This is a complaint we hear from some of our subcontractors, so.
And just if I could jump off of that to ask kind of a second question to it. And, you know, we're working with the small businesses, but is there an incentive or a directive to those primes that, hey, you know, I mean, they have a lot going on, but putting the pressure on them so that it doesn't have to be the people who we're trying to help, that the onus is on them, I know. Like you said, they don't wanna rock the boat, so are there incentives or penalties or things that we, you know, and again, I don't even pretend to understand the massive projects and the systems that go into it to push money in and out, but I just wanna focus on people who have the money to disperse the money in an expeditious way and not stress out our MCUP businesses. Do we do that?
Madam Chair, council members, incentives, not really, but we did recently, due to a mandate for our federal projects, we included penalties.
Good.
And we're working on our contract language also to mirror that for our local projects as well.
Yeah.
And then also retainage, which is part of payments too, is a focus area. So we also proactively work both with the business units, the prime contractor, and the small business to release retainage early when it makes sense, and when their work is done, there's no reason to hold the retainage. So we try to be responsive and proactive in this area where we probably haven't been in the past, because we know that this is that number one kind of barrier and issue that can inhibit a small business.
Yes, thank you.
And then lastly, just come up with some of our success and impact. You know, we continue to experience growth in our MCUB supplier program. If you recall, 3 years ago, we did not have a supplier program. And we have 4 different relationships with manufacturers where we have MCUB suppliers of those manufacturers. Why that's important? we have a lot of proprietary goods and parts that we procure. And a lot of times those manufacturers don't have distributors and suppliers that are MCUs. So we worked with procurement to use our influence and leadership to say, hey, how can we make a difference? And we've created 4 different relationships that we've been tracking and measuring that progress. Also, we talked about a little bit about the increase in tools and legislative changes that will help us be more intentional in our efforts. We also have the Small Business Supported Services contract where we do training. 43 small businesses took advantage of the Council Small Business Supported Services training. And then this was funded by funds that were approved by this body. So we want to make sure that we're able to report on this. And I've committed to providing at least 1 quote every quarter from our surveys and part of our quality control process to show how we're making an impact. And with that, any other questions, we will stand for.
Councilmember Morales?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You mentioned we track a lot of how we make the payments to contractors. This isn't specifically towards MCUB, but are we also, when we're tracking those payments, are we tracking the change orders? And are we taking that into consideration when we have these contractors that are winning the bids? But then when you actually look at the amount of change orders that they have, it would have been at a much higher cost compared to if it would have gone with a more reputable contractor that did do their homework and their bid was originally lower than after you added up all the change orders.
Madam Chair, Councilmember Morales, that's a very good point of information. And what I'll say is our construction unit monitors that data and working with the experts in the business units to ensure that as much as we can that projects are being delivered in a manner of which they were bid. We do have a vendor performance report form, and I will say in the latter half of last year, we've seen a more uptick in some of those issues that are causing engagement, and we're dealing with them on a case-by-case basis. So it's definitely always a consideration to making sure that those contractors who won the bids continue to be responsive to what we put out as a package and then responsible as they're performing the work.
Yeah, great question. Councilmember Jenkins.
So my question has to do with the civil and economic challenges that many of our businesses, predominantly our MCUB businesses, are facing. Do we see that impacting our numbers, and what can we do to help address that?
Madam Chair, council members, we have some empirical data and through our conversations with small businesses to kind of get a good idea of what those impacts are. It's some of the civil and other factors that have manifested in our region. We don't have a good measure, a good solid measure for, but we are talking to folks. There are people in the market that are offering to do those kinds of analysis for us to understand, and surveys to get at some of that data. But we are hearing from our businesses relative to those impacts, and we know it's impacting them. I just can't today tell you this is how or how much it's impacting our businesses.
Sure.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I knew we would be aware, but I want our business community to be aware that we are also aware of their challenges, and just that we're looking forward to see how we can help. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Councilmember Little.
Yeah, thanks, and sort of an observation, I guess, and then maybe a request more than a question here, but Judy, if I when you were opening this conversation today, you referenced, and you do quite often during this report, you know, the importance of leadership, council leadership, departmental leadership, and supporting us in helping us achieve our goals. And I agree in that. And then when we were looking at the decline in P card use, and as you were answering that question, you know, you kind of talked about the culture, right? And that the signers need to understand the importance of what they're doing and some of the due diligence they can do. And so the request, Madam Chair, is if there is something that we can do as a council to help build out that culture where those things are more important to the people who are signing these things, or if there are actions that we can take, policies that we can establish, procedures we can encourage our department heads to take, please bring them to us, because I think you'll find a lot of support on this committee and on this council.
I appreciate that question. In fact, part of the, we've touched on this before, and you
Pretty
know.
much every time.
Yeah, pretty much. So, and to that point, even, you know, on performance reviews, like, are you doing these things? These are metrics that we are trying to hit as a department. You are a signer, and that responsibility lies with you, and certainly there are reasons the whys and the why nots, but that's where incentives, you know, for people that have that and the teams that have that, to really push them to change their mindset or adapt their mindset in a culture that is proactively supporting that. So I don't know if it's, you know, sometimes it's individual by individual, and we don't know, we're only trying to look through the lens that you guys are giving us, but I agree, whatever we can do as a council to push, cajole, pressure, require, thank you. Because, you know, we're making progress, very proud of it, you guys are doing great work, and yet, you know, there's so much more opportunity.
Yeah, I appreciate those comments, Madam Chair and Council Member, and that is really part of our platform with working with HR's Learning and Development and Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity, and even Finance, that we're launching 3 programs within first quarter. And specifically to embed not only a baseline understanding, but the expectations of the work and the rigor that's required at a project manager level, at a people leader level, and then a testing that they understand. So if there is indeed confusion or clarification, there can be more information, maybe a retraining, and then it leads into performance management.
Great, thanks.
And Madam Chair, if I can just add to that, with the numbers for the P card and some of the other things, you may think, you know, I would be discouraged, but I honestly am more encouraged than I have been in quite some time around the engagement, accountability, and Jody and I are looking forward to coming back here soon to talk about our strategic plan and how we're doing, what some of the things are. Again, creating those conversations and creativity and innovation, new ideas, making it part of a performance. I don't want to give away too much, but looking forward to coming back to talk about some of those things that are happening for 2026.
Great, and we have been talking about this for a long time. Some of us are in our second terms, some first terms, and a big organization like this doesn't turn on a dime. But we need, you know, I think you've got the things in place that we've been promoting, supporting, and you're, you know, it's a lot of work, right? And so let's see how, even in just this 1 year, you know, while some of us are still around, you know, see what we can get done. And I do appreciate your hard work. I'm not trying to minimize it. I just feel like there's always this sense of urgency around this. And so going into year 8, still feeling urgency, and we're your biggest cheerleaders. And again, like Councilmember Lilligren and others have said, if you need something, you let us know. Because we can pass motions to do things and say to do things. So any kind of support you need, you know, you've got us here.
Thank you.
Councilmember Osmond.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to follow up the question about the subcontract agreement. So do we have any idea about how long they wait, average after they complete their one order.
Madam Chair, Council Member, really again, it's a case-by-case basis. We do have really specific contract language that specifies that a prime needs to review the work and pay the subcontractor with a certain number of days. Occasionally, and there's a House file this year, as you're likely aware, looking at subcontractor payment disclosure. And then my input and some of the other chief procurement input across the region, what we find is when we hear from subcontractors, not always, but very typically, there is some closeout documents that need to occur before they can make that payment. So it is really important that the primes are promptly reviewing the invoices and paying those subcontractors. We're not tracking that because we have the contract with the prime, except if they're a DBE or an MCUB. But we certainly recognize that that is an area where we are looking at the council to have more information available for our subcontractors if they feel they should be paid and they haven't. What are their rights and how can they work with us as the public owner to ensure that they're being fairly compensated in the appropriate time.
Thank you for your question. Well, thank you for coming today. We appreciate you bringing this update and information. We look forward to you coming back in the not too distant future with some of those other things you're working on. And again, we appreciate all of your hard work, everybody through the council who's working on this. Very grateful for your hard work. Thank you.
Thank
Great questions. All right, we are going to move on to our agenda, but we have a little switcheroo. Mark, our Director of Treasury, Mark Thompson, is gonna come back another time because we ran a little over on that item, so I'm sorry, Mark. We'll make it extra fun for you when you come back. Yeah, sorry, I mean, I hope you like hanging out with us for a little bit here. But we'll have you back at the next meeting or whenever is most appropriate, so thank you for being with us. And then with that, I'll turn to Councilmember Lilligren because we will be going into closed session and I look to him for a motion.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I move that this meeting be closed to the public pursuant to Minnesota statute, section 13D, .05, subdivision 3B, and applicable case law, so the committee can discuss with our legal counsel in a confidential setting, attorney-client privileged matters.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
I'll just, for the public, this item on our agenda is the discussion of attorney-client privilege issues relating to 15 pending litigation matters that are listed on our committee agenda. And by majority vote in a public meeting, we are closing this meeting under again section 13D.05 subdivision 3B of the Minnesota Open Meeting Law to discuss these attorney-client privilege matters. Discussing these litigation matters in a confidential setting will permit the council to engage in candid discussions and resolve these matters in a way that benefits the council and the public. Discussions during the closed portion of this meeting to discuss attorney-client matters will be confined to the pending litigation matters listed on the committee agenda and nothing else. With that, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. And that motion carries. So we're gonna take a moment here. We can reset ourselves. We'll be closing the meeting. We will not be coming back into this meeting. There will be nothing else discussed by the management committee when our closed session ends. And then we'll be heading off to our regular council meeting after that. So we'll just wait to hear to, make sure that we're not broadcasting, so if everyone just hold.